if I have the trick all the way out to it. You know what, my lovelies? Normally when I hear a vicious sound, I would just say, get out now and leave. But you know what? I'm staying put. Because this darn story is way scarier than any gosh darn werewolf. Hello, my lovelies. I am Madam Crystal Butterfly. And today I am going to be reviewing 365 Days by Blanka Lipińska. Blanka Lipińska is a #1 international best-selling author. Her trilogy has been translated into almost 30 languages and sold in over 100 countries worldwide. Now, Blanka decided to enter into the realm of the author due to her desire to write a story instead of necessity, and things that she values most are truthfulness and altruism. Now, Blanka was annoyed with the lack of openness about sex and desired to have more of a discussion about the many sides of love, and she did this more through her creation of her trilogy of books. All right, my lovelies, it's time for that butterfly score. Now, if you enjoy me doing the butterfly score early in the video, please comment below and I'll keep doing it. But if a lot of you do not enjoy me doing the butterfly score early in the video, just comment below and I'll go back to putting the score at the end. Anyway, 365 Days has earned a butterfly rating of 1 butterfly out of 5. I understand Blanka's desire to use her story to calm down some of the stigma about sex, but I do not feel that her execution in that regard was done very well. Lura Bill and her boyfriend are on a dream vacation in beautiful Sicily. On the second day of their trip, her 29th birthday, she is kidnapped. Her kidnapper is none other than the head of a powerful Sicilian crime family, the incredibly handsome young Don Massimo Torricelli, who is determined to possess her at all costs. Massimo has his reasons. During an early attempt on his life, a vision appeared before his eyes, a beautiful woman identical to Lura. After surviving the attack, he vows that he will find the woman in his vision and make her his own, no matter what. For 365 days, Massimo will keep Lura captive in his palatial estate and attempt to win her heart. If she doesn't fall in love with him during this time, he will let her go. But if she tries to escape at any point, he will track her down and kill her entire family. Soon, Lura develops a fascination with her handsome and powerful captor. But as a precarious, risky relationship forms between them, forces outside their control threaten to tear them apart. Before we delve deeper into this story's subject matter and why I do not feel that Blanka executed her story well, I want to take a moment to talk about the genre of which this story falls under. 365 Days falls into the category of dark romance. It's the type of erotica that would fall into that theme. And dark romance is actually a very broad genre. You can't just pin one type of book into it. So what is dark romance in general? Well, it's supposed to be a romantic story with darker themes, and some dark romances can get very extreme with those themes. As I said before, some dark romance stories will paint the idea of kidnapping, getting sold into slavery, being whipped and tortured to stimulate sexual desire as a thrilling, erotic story. It's often driven by a power fantasies, a lot of times with a male who is controlling a female and treating her autonomy as if it's a joke, which is why the very concept of consent in this type of dark fantasy is considered an afterthought. However, if done well and consent is not treated like it doesn't matter, this type of dark fantasy can turn into an interesting story, but there are those dark fantasies who just choose not to do that. When you write a story, my lovelies, it's not a good idea to quickly rush through your world building, because it can confuse your reader and make it either harder for them to understand the characters or where the characters are. In 365 days, Blanka rushed her world building so that she could get to the intercourse scenes rather quickly. And I understand why she would want to do that, because this is erotica. Sex is the whole point of the book. But her rushing the world building, the scenes, and even the character intros did make it so when you first meet the characters, it's like receiving a quick info dump. You understand it, but everything feels rushed and you don't really digest the information well. To make matters worse, it didn't help the story for the male love interest to be an irredeemable asshole. The way Blanka opens up 365 days was not really good. It actually, the beginning of the story made me very angry and deeply uncomfortable. You see, when you're first introduced to this story, you are following the story through the lens of the male love interest, and you learn very quickly he's a mob boss, and apparently some time ago he got shot. And when he was shot, he had a near-death experience where he envisioned a woman who he fell in love with. Something I want to say is that despite what Massimo says about being in love with the woman he envisioned in his dream, he's really just obsessed with her and only wishes to possess her. Personally, I feel love is something he is incapable of via his behavior throughout the book. I will get into this subject more when I get to how he treats this story's female love interest. Massimo gets into his private jet, and I believe right before he got onto his jet, his so-called girlfriend contacted him wanting sex, and apparently he was already extremely horny, and after she contacted him, he became even more aroused. While he's on his private jet, he grabs a poor stewardess and rapes her. This establishes that Massimo is a fucking asshole who has no regret for what he did, nor will he try at any point of this story to atone for his crime. The story is basically about how he will find love and happiness via romance. I don't like the idea of someone as evil as him finding joy in life. I want him to go to jail and learn why everyone says don't drop the soap. Sadly, this does not happen, and he gets to do more horrible and uncomfortable things. Anyway, after his plane lands, while he's on the way to his office, he sees the female love interest, whose name once again is Lura, and she looks exactly like the woman in his dream. Instead of trying to approach her in a healthy way, he decides to kidnap her. So he sends his goons to discover who she is and everything about her life. While making plans to kidnap the woman of his obsession, his girlfriend arrives. You would think because he supposedly just found the love of his life, he would end things then and there with his girlfriend. But no, he doesn't. He sleeps with her, and the entire scene is uncomfortable because it's clear he is only investing in pleasuring himself. He has no real interest in truly pleasing his partner. And the book doesn't tell you this till later, but apparently he dumped her right after he slept with her so that he can chase after Lura. My lovelies, I'll tell you a bit more about that asshole in just a minute, but what about our leading lady, Lura? What kind of person is she? Well, she's not a bad person. There are times in the story where she tries to get Massimo to not be completely evil, but she's not exactly a good person either. When we meet Lura, she is about to get on a plane to Sicily with her friends and boyfriend. We get a quick info dump about Lura and how she just quit her dream job solely after getting it. She has a boyfriend who is a sweet person. Remember that for later in the review. Lura is also sexually frustrated in her relationship, and things with her and her boyfriend seem to be cooling down. Also, she doesn't like Italians. Why? The story does not really specify a reason, just gives a few superficial ideas Lura has about Italians. I don't know if that's why, but it doesn't exactly state the actual reason. So I can't really give you a clear idea of why. She also drinks a lot, compulsively shops for designer, and seems very irritated in the beginning of the story for, I guess, reasons. Like later she does have a fight with her boyfriend, so that's a reason to be irritated, but before that I don't really get where her irritation comes from. And I know everything I just listed and stated makes her sound extremely superficial, and she is. If Massimo was not such a stupid piece of crap, he could have easily gotten Lura to date him via his wealth and so-called good luck. Speaking of that fool, Lura first bumps into Massimo when she and her friends go to a restaurant to celebrate her birthday. I'm not going to get into how Massimo and Lura first encounter each other because this is still a spoiler-free review. Though it does not take Massimo long to get a hold of Lura because she gets drunk and wanders away from her friends because she's mad at her boyfriend. When Lura wakes up in the mansion Massimo is keeping her in, she is understandably freaking out while he tells her how she looks like the woman from his dream he obsesses over. He tells her he is going to keep her for a year, hence the name of the story, 365 Days. This actually does create a problem for the story's theme, but I will get into why later. If Massimo does not succeed in his plan of getting her to fall in love with him within that time frame, he says that he will let her go, but that's what he says. The story gives us a lot of reasons not to believe him. If she tries to run away, he will hurt those she cares about. He also shows her photos of her boyfriend sleeping with another woman. There is a problem with these photos, but I'm going to get into that detail in a minute. Massimo makes a promise to Lura that he will prank non-stop throughout the story. He tells her that he will not do anything to her without her consent, and he will not perceive that she wants him to do something without her express consent. This is brought up by Massimo more than once throughout the story, and it's a lie. And that's not just because he's holding her hostage. Lura is claustrophobic, and the story really only brings this up when she has to get on a plane. She freaks out when Massimo forces her onto his private jet, And once they're on the plane, Lura is just really upset with him because he forced her on there. She begged him not to. So she slaps him. He gets angry at her and tells her she has to be punished for hitting him. Alright, I'm going to flash my warning again right here because what I'm about to tell you next is very disturbing. Massimo tells Lura she has to pick between letting him lick her clit or she sucks his wingadink. He emphasizes the whole thing is her decision because he gave her a choice. She decides to suck on his penis and he does not honor the decision she made. Alright, there are all kinds of problems here. One, he said he would not do anything to her without her express consent and he would not proceed to have that consent without her confirming it. Obviously, him telling her those two choices is forcing her to do something that she does not want to do and therefore he does not have her consent to do so. And you also have to think he's this mob boss who kidnapped her. She's in a situation of when he tells her those are her two options, she is in a position where she feels like if she refuses him, he's going to either hurt her or her loved ones. Next, he gives her two options and gets her to choose. When she makes a decision of what she is willing to do, he does not allow her to go with that decision and makes her go with the opposite decision, thus meaning he was giving her false autonomy in that situation to make it look like she had decision and then takes it away so that she feels powerless to make a decision of her own. There are even more problems I could go on and on about, but throughout this story there are several sex scenes that just scream rape, and they are very frequent throughout the entire book. Also, because the plot needs this to be seen as alright, even though it's clearly not, Lura will either forget about the whole thing and just brush it off, or just suddenly be okay with it, and just her being okay with something that was forced on her and then playing it off as this is so romantic, it's just not fun to read about, and it's very uncomfortable and wrong. There are two more points in this story I would like to take a moment to talk to all of you about. Mostly because I can't emphasize enough what a jackass Massimo is, and there is a bit of a story building flaw in this book that I feel that I can't ignore. As mentioned earlier, Massimo showed Lura that her boyfriend cheated on her. She will later discover that Massimo drugged her ex-boyfriend with some kind of pill in his alcohol that made her boyfriend get drunk really fast so that he would cheat because he was under the influence. Lura is bothered by Massimo drugging her ex-boyfriend, but she has no interest in getting back together with her ex. Massimo, however, feels threatened by Lura's ex despite her insurance. She is not getting back with the man. At this point of the story, Lura has fallen in love with Massimo. It took less than 2 months for this to happen, making the whole 365 days theme of the story that was built up early on as critical for the story's plot as completely pointless. Lura's boyfriend is trying to make amends and get her back because he still wants to be with her. Lura is telling the man that, listen, I get you were under the influence, but I just don't want to be with you anymore knowing you slept with someone else. Her boyfriend keeps trying, and Lura realizes that she just sits down with her ex and really talks to him, that he'll give up on trying to win her back and the two of them will go their separate ways. But Massimo is so insecure that when Lura's ex tries to get her back, Massimo gets determined to kill the man. Lura is begging Massimo to just let her talk to her ex. But before she even gets a chance to, schedule a time and place to just have a conversation with her ex-boyfriend about how they're not getting back together, so he might as well just move on. Massimo gets angry, heads up to the man's apartment, and gets ready to murder him. And he almost succeeds, but Lura gets there in time to talk Massimo out of shooting her ex. This man is extremely violent and possessive, and he really seems only to see Lura as a possession, not a person. And when it comes to love, you see your partner as a person, not an object that you collected. This story, my lovelies, was actually a very unpleasant reading experience for me. I actually had to call a friend fairly frequently to vent about what it was in the story that was bothering me so much just to get through reading it. I've actually mentioned this friend on this channel before because I reviewed her books. Her name is Shalise Hurd, and she is the host of the YouTube channel Autistic Travel Goddess. And her channel deals a lot with autism advocacy and helping people with autism learn how to travel where they want to be in life, whether it be giving advice with finance, teaching people with autism how they would be able to take an affordable trip, well, really teaching everyone how to take affordable trips, and also talking about dating if you're looking to get in a relationship. She's actually created a dating course for autistic men, and she's getting ready also to unveil a dating course for autistic women. So if you are interested in that, just check out her channel. I will leave the links to her social media below. Anyway, so I'm talking to my buddy Shalise, and when I explained to her everything about Massimo, she frequently had to pause because he checks off every red flag that she teaches in her course to avoid and not to act like, and brings about how someone who behaves that way has a serious problem. Really, she was amazed I was able to finish that entire book. Even I'm amazed I was able to finish the book because, as I keep saying, it's an unpleasant read. I get for some people, they have the whole kidnap fantasy thing, and I'm not trying to kink shame anybody, and I get for people who are into that type of story, they view it as only being necessary to be in the world of fantasy. They have no desire for it to leave the world of fantasy. And that's why I even gave Blanka one butterfly, because yes, she was catering to that community. And I understand she was focused on just telling a sexy, erotic story that she viewed as sexy. But in my opinion, it was just uncomfortable and unpleasant to read, and I'm glad that I'm done with it. This story I actually found out about because they made a movie about the book, 365 Days, and I did not see the movie. I actually watched somebody review the movie because it just popped up in my YouTube and I was bored, so I was like, why not watch this video? And the person reviewing the movie said that the movie was okay, but it was still better than the book because they felt like the person who created the movie was trying to improve the story. And I was thinking, oh please, I'll just read the book. The book is always better. And after having read that unpleasant book, I've accepted this time is one of those rare cases where the movie is better than the book. Anyway, my lovelies, I am not going to tell you to never pick up a copy of 365 Days, no matter how unpleasant it is. Because I am not the boss of you. I'm not going to pretend like I can tell you what to do. But I will say this book was not pleasant for me to read. It was not a pleasurable reading experience, and I do not recommend it. I do recommend you read something else, but if you want to check this story out anyway, You know, that's your decision. Now, my lovelies, if you made it to this part of the video, thank you so much. And please give this video a like. Leave me a little comment. And if you have not yet, slap that subscribe button like it owes your money. And don't forget to give that little notification bell a ring. And with that, my lovelies, this video is a wrap. Now, if you please, come with me as we dance into a world of magic.